The 15th stage of this year's Giro d'Italia could not be in more contrast to the day that came before it, when they raced around the Val d'Aosta in the Western Alps and finished on top of Pila, the Gressan side. Yesterday, Jonas Vingegaard marking his stamp on the Maglia Rosa and taking it too into the final week of racing. This stage, though, sometimes a slightly controversial one, a race to get into Milano and then 4 16-kilometre anti-clockwise laps. A full 91, nearly 92 kilometres to get there, though. And Jonas Vingegaard in the Maglia Rosa, having taken it from Afonso Eulalia, who's worn it now for so long. Relaxed affairs as they rode north-eastward to get to Milano, and a four-man breakaway formed. It was Martin Marcellusi of Bardiani CSF 7 Sabre, with Mattia Bais and Mirco Maestri, the two Italians from Polti VisitMalta, and they had with them former Norwegian road race champion Fredrik Dversnes of UnoX Mobility. After just under 50 kilometres, they came to the first sprint, the Maglia Ciclamino sprint, and it was breakaway specialist Martin Marcellusi taking that one there. But this was the fascinating one, the sprint for 1 point. There was only 1 point that separated Jonathan Narvaez, who was in the Maglia Ciclamino, and the man who's worn it since the very beginning of this race, Paul Magnier. And on this occasion, it was Paul Magnier taking the one sprint point, which meant in that Ciclamino competition they were back level. It would come down to the finish for them. Would it come down to a sprint finish for them, though? Paul Magnier, most people would consider the best sprinter now in this race, looking to get another stage win too. Bike change for the Kiwi Josh Kench on the Groupama FDJ team. No great panic though, now that they were onto the circuit. And we had a nice moment where we appeared to have a peloton split chaser the other side of the canal. Dylan Groenewegen's team of UnoX Mobility, his team of UnoX Mobility, his team of Unibet Rose Rockets, of course, were doing the chasing, and this was the gap. 2 minutes they had as they came onto the circuit with 4 whole laps to go. Soudal Quick-Step, in the end, working with Unibet Rose Rockets, and of course, Lidl Trek, the team of Jonathan Milan. Could Jonathan Milan get a win in Milano? Now, we had a few problems on the first lap of the circuit. As you can see, Victor Campenaerts indicating the issue to the race controllers and commissaires. And as the 4 laps went by, a few conversations went by too about what could be done to ensure this circuit and its twists and turns did not affect the general classification. We had a Rickbill kilometre sprint halfway through the second lap, and that was taken by Fredrik Dversnes. But after that, quite a long conversation between the race leader, Jonas Vingegaard, and race direction, and plans were, as we believe now, being concocted to figure out how to make sure these excellent laps, which entertained both you and the crowd, weren't too impactful on the general classification. 2 laps to go. It was Martin Marcellusi leading through the line. The break of 4 was still clear. 1 minute 41 was looking like a gap that the peloton could bring down, and they were certainly working well to do that. As I say, Soudal Quick-Step, Unibet Rose Rockets, the team of Dylan Groenewegen. With 1 lap to go, it was 54 seconds. The laps were only 16 kilometres, don't forget. And look at the gap. The gap coming down all the time, down to 40 seconds as well. The same teams doing the pacing, and of course the same 4 riders out front. Fredrik Dversnes doing long turns. All of the 4 out front, by the way, were between 2.5 and 3 minutes down on GC. It would not affect general classification, but with 5k to go, it was looking touch and go. And these little pauses while teams realign themselves at the front of the peloton were definitely not helping, I should say. Fredrik Dversnes doing another long turn too. They could not take their feet off the pedal at the front for the 4 in the breakaway, otherwise they would be caught. And they weren't to be caught either. This was them coming towards the line. At this point we could see the sprint would need to open up very, very quickly. There was the front end of the sprinters behind. Fredrik Dversnes, on paper, always the quickest man in here, but he'd never won a World Tour race, and certainly not at this level. But that is exactly what the Norwegian did for UnoX Mobility. A massive win in the stages of his career, and as you could see, a sprint there that was won by Paul Magnier behind. Fredrik Dversnes taking the win ahead of Mirco Maestri, Martin Marcellusi and Mattia Bais. Paul Magnier bringing in the best of the rest and the points that came with it. Jonas Vingegaard safe in the general classification after the final lap had been neutralised for the GC, so no impact there, thankfully. Paul Magnier back in the lead in the Maglia Ciclamino competition, but that battle between him and Narvaez is one that will rage, I'm sure. Of course, no change to Jonas Vingegaard's lead in the Maglia Azzurra, and Afonso Eulalia likewise in the Maglia Bianca. Rest day tomorrow, mountains hostilities beckon after that.